Tonight, we descend into the shadows to uncover Nightfang, the vampire monster that hunts the living when the world sleeps. This is not a legend whispered for comfort, but a predator feared across forgotten villages and blood-stained forests. With eyes that pierce darkness and fangs that drain more than blood, Nightfang stalks silently, choosing victims with chilling precision. Where did it come from? How does it hunt? And why has no one truly escaped its grasp? Stay with us as we unravel the origin, abilities, and terrifying truths behind Nightfang. For viewers ready to face the nightmare lurking beyond darkness. Nightfang, the vampire monster that hunts the living. Blood hunt is an advanced predatory sense known as Nightfang's most feared talent. It allows Nightfang to perceive living heartbeats across a vast radius, translating biological rhythm into spatial awareness. This ability does not function as ordinary hearing, sight, or smell. Instead, it is a synthesis of instinct, supernatural perception, and disciplined focus, refined through years of nocturnal hunting. Blood hunt turns the living world into a map of pulses, pressures, and emotional surges, enabling Nightfang to track prey, avoid ambush, and dominate environments where conventional senses fail. At its core, blood hunt interprets the heartbeat as both a mechanical and emotional signal. Every living creature produces a rhythm shaped by physiology, stress, and intent. Nightfang senses these rhythms as variations in intensity and texture. Calm heartbeats appear steady and distant, like slow drumbeats beneath the ground. Accelerated or irregular heartbeats flare brightly in Nightfang's awareness, revealing fear, pain, exertion, or imminent violence. Injury amplifies this signal, as damaged bodies struggle to regulate circulation, creating chaotic patterns that stand out sharply from healthy rhythms. The radius of blood hunt extends far beyond ordinary sensory ranges. In open terrain, Nightfang can detect heartbeats from several kilometers away, provided there are no supernatural obstructions. Dense urban environments, underground structures, or magically shielded zones reduce the effective range, but rarely nullify it entirely. Blood hunt penetrates darkness, fog, smoke, and light cover, making concealment nearly impossible for living targets. However, complete stillness, artificial heart regulation, or powerful masking techniques can weaken the signal and demand greater concentration from Nightfang. Fear plays a crucial role in blood hunt's effectiveness. Emotional states directly influence cardiovascular activity, and fear is the most revealing of all. When prey experiences terror, adrenaline surges, heart rate spikes, and blood pressure rises, producing a vivid signature that Nightfang can lock onto instantly. This creates a feedback loop. The more frightened the target becomes, the easier they are to track. Nightfang often exploits this by revealing presence indirectly, allowing prey's own fear to betray their location. Injury is the second major amplifier of blood hunt. Wounds disrupt normal circulation, causing erratic pulses and localized blood loss. These disturbances echo through Nightfang's perception like torn fabric. Even minor injuries can be traced if the target is moving or stressed. Severe wounds create overwhelming signals, allowing Nightfang to identify not only the presence of injured beings but also the approximate severity and urgency of their condition. This makes blood hunt equally effective for hunting, pursuit, and battlefield assessment. Blood hunt is not passive awareness, it requires deliberate control. Nightfang must attune focus, slowing personal breathing and heart rate to reduce internal noise. In moments of intense combat or emotional turmoil, maintaining blood hunt becomes more difficult. Distractions, sensory overload, or magical interference can fragment the perception, turning clear signals into confusing echoes. Mastery of blood hunt therefore reflects not only supernatural ability but also discipline and mental resilience. The perception provided by blood hunt is spatial rather than visual. Nightfang does not see bodies but senses positions, movements, and trajectories through shifting pulses. Rapid movement causes heartbeats to smear across space, indicating speed and direction. Sudden stops or drops in rhythm suggest concealment, unconsciousness, or death. When multiple targets are present, blood hunt allows Nightfang to prioritize based on proximity, threat level, and emotional volatility. One of blood hunt's most dangerous applications is ambush detection. Hostile intent often precedes action, subtly altering heart rhythms before movement occurs. Nightfang can sense the tightening anticipation of an enemy preparing to strike, even if they remain perfectly still. This precognitive edge allows evasive maneuvers, counterattacks, or strategic withdrawal. However, disciplined opponents trained to suppress fear and regulate breathing can reduce this advantage, though few can eliminate it entirely. Blood Hunt also enables long-term tracking. Each individual's heartbeat has a unique cadence shaped by biology and habit. Nightfang can memorize these patterns, following a specific target across vast distances and extended periods. Even after losing direct contact, residual familiarity allows Nightfang to reacquire the trail quickly. Environmental factors like running water, heavy machinery, or large crowds complicate this process but rarely defeat it outright. Despite its power, Blood Hunt has limitations. It cannot detect non-living entities, constructs, or beings without circulatory systems. Undead creatures with no true heartbeat are effectively invisible unless they simulate biological functions. Artificial hearts, advanced cybernetics, or magical suppression fields can distort signals, forcing Nightfang to expend more energy interpreting them. Over-reliance on Blood Hunt can also create blind spots, as Nightfang may ignore threats that do not register as living heartbeats. Extended use of Blood Hunt is physically and mentally taxing. Processing thousands of simultaneous signals strains the nervous system, leading to headaches, sensory fatigue, and emotional bleed-through. Nightfang may temporarily experience echoes of fear or pain from nearby beings, requiring grounding techniques to maintain identity and focus. Rest and recovery are essential to prevent long-term degradation of the ability. In narrative terms, Blood Hunt defines Nightfang's role as an apex predator and relentless tracker. It transforms fear into vulnerability and injury into revelation. The ability reinforces themes of inevitability and psychological horror, as escape becomes increasingly futile once Nightfang has locked onto a target's heartbeat. At the same time, Blood Hunt humanizes conflict by emphasizing the fragility of living bodies and the emotional cost of being hunted. Ultimately, Blood Hunt is more than a sensory power, it is a philosophy of predation. Nightfang does not merely chase prey but listens to their life force, responding to its fluctuations with calculated precision. The living world cannot hide its pulse forever, and through Blood Hunt, Nightfang becomes the embodiment of that truth. Training to master Blood Hunt begins with internal awareness. Nightfang learns to map personal heartbeat, breath, and muscle tension before attempting to sense others. This internal calibration creates a baseline, allowing external rhythms to stand out clearly. Early training often overwhelms initiates, as the sudden influx of biological signals can feel like standing inside a storm of drums. Over time, Nightfang develops filters, consciously narrowing focus to relevant ranges or emotional states. This selective attention prevents paralysis and enables rapid tactical decision-making. Advanced training introduces deliberate distortion. Nightfang practices sensing heartbeats through barriers such as stone, metal, and magical wards. These exercises teach pattern recognition rather than raw detection, helping Nightfang infer positions from incomplete data. By learning how signals bend, fade, or fragment, Nightfang becomes adept at reconstructing hidden movement. This skill proves invaluable in complex environments like fortresses, ruins, or dense cities where line of sight is constantly broken. Countermeasures against Blood Hunt exist but demand extreme discipline or resources. Meditation techniques that slow and stabilize the heart can reduce detectability, particularly when combined with stillness. Pain suppression drugs or magic may dampen injury signals, though they risk further harm. Some elite operatives employ synchronized breathing and emotional detachment to minimize fear responses. Even so, prolonged exposure to danger usually erodes control, allowing Blood Hunt to re-establish contact. Technological or magical interference can also challenge Blood Hunt. Fields that generate false rhythmic signals create sensory clutter, forcing Nightfang to sort genuine heartbeats from artificial noise. This tactic buys time rather than guaranteeing safety, as experienced users can identify organic irregularities. Total suppression of biological signals is rare and often unsustainable, requiring continuous energy or invasive modification. Blood Hunt has ethical implications within its narrative context. The ability blurs the line between awareness and violation, as Nightfang perceives intimate biological states without consent. Fear, pain, and vulnerability become exposed truths. This raises questions about predation, responsibility, and restraint. Some portrayals depict Nightfang choosing not to pursue certain signals, demonstrating agency and moral conflict. Others emphasize inevitability, framing Blood Hunt as an immoral force of nature. Psychologically, Blood Hunt shapes Nightfang's worldview. Constant exposure to fear and injury can desensitize or traumatize the user. Nightfang may struggle to relate to others without perceiving their hidden anxieties. This isolation reinforces the archetype of the lone hunter, separated from ordinary experience by relentless perception. Moments of silence, where Blood Hunt is intentionally suppressed, become rare and precious. The evolution of Blood Hunt often parallels Nightfang's character development. Early use may be crude and overwhelming, while later mastery reflects confidence and control. In some interpretations, Blood Hunt expands to include predictive elements, sensing not just current heartbeats but imminent changes based on intent. This progression symbolizes the refinement of instinct into strategy. Tactically, Blood Hunt excels in pursuit scenarios. Nightfang can herd targets by positioning to trigger fear responses, steering movement along predictable paths. In combat, the ability allows anticipation of feints, retreats, and desperate charges. Against groups, Blood Hunt reveals leadership dynamics, as dominant individuals often exhibit distinct rhythmic patterns during stress. Eliminating or pressuring these figures can fracture enemy cohesion. Defensively, Blood Hunt provides early warning. Nightfang can rest or meditate while maintaining low-level awareness, waking instantly when unfamiliar heartbeats enter range. This makes surprise attacks exceptionally difficult. However, constant vigilance risks exhaustion, reinforcing the need for balance and trust in allies when possible. Symbolically, Blood Hunt represents the inescapability of being alive. Heartbeats signify existence, emotion, and mortality. By sensing them, Nightfang stands at the intersection of life and death, listening to the fragile engine that drives both. This symbolism deepens narrative tension, as every chase becomes a confrontation with the reality of living bodies under threat. In Blood Hunt is a multifaceted ability that combines supernatural perception, emotional intelligence, and disciplined control. Nightfang's capacity to sense living heartbeats, especially those marked by fear or injury, defines both combat effectiveness and thematic identity. It is an ability that rewards patience, punishes panic, and transforms the pulse of life into an undeniable signal. Through Blood Hunt, Nightfang does not merely hunt the living, Nightfang listens to life itself. Future interpretations of Blood Hunt may explore its limits through narrative contrast. Placing Nightfang in environments saturated with life, such as refugee camps or vast ecosystems, forces prioritization and restraint. Alternatively, confronting absolute silence, where no heartbeats exist, challenges identity and purpose. These scenarios test whether Blood Hunt defines Nightfang, or merely serves as a tool. By exploring abundance and absence, stories can deepen the emotional resonance of the ability. Blood Hunt then becomes not only a mechanism of pursuit, but a lens through which Nightfang understands connection, loss, and choice. The heartbeat is constant, yet meaning arises from how it is answered. In this way, Blood Hunt remains endlessly adaptable, supporting horror, strategy, tragedy, and introspection within a single, unified power that continues to evolve alongside the character who wields it. Ultimately, mastery is measured not by distance sensed, but by wisdom applied, restraint chosen, and understanding gained. Blood Hunt endures as a signature ability because it intertwines power with perception, forcing Nightfang to confront life's rhythm with every step taken. Shadow Step is an art of movement, concealment, and intent that allows its wielder to vanish into darkness and reappear from another shadow nearby. It is neither simple teleportation nor mere invisibility, but a disciplined technique that treats shadows as contiguous spaces, thin membranes between locations that share the same absence of light. To understand Shadow Step is to understand darkness not as emptiness, but as a medium that can be entered, navigated, and exited with precision. Those who master it learn to move where sight fails, turning obscurity into a reliable pathway. At its core, Shadow Step relies on the principle that shadows are connected by similarity rather than distance. A shadow cast beneath a table and the shadow pooling behind a wall are not separate voids, they are expressions of the same phenomenon, light denied. The practitioner focuses on this shared quality, allowing their body to slip into the shadow they occupy and emerge from another shadow that resonates with the same depth and density. The movement is nearly instantaneous to observers, but internally it feels like crossing a narrow corridor, brief yet deliberate. The act of vanishing begins with alignment. The user must still their breath and slow their awareness until it matches the quiet nature of shadow. Sudden emotion or scattered thoughts can disrupt the transition, causing the shadow to reject the body. When alignment is achieved, the practitioner lets their outline soften, imagining their form losing definition as darkness claims its edges. In that moment, the body is no longer anchored fully to the physical space it occupied, allowing it to sink into the shadow like a stone into deep water. Inside the shadow, sensation changes. Sound is muted, touch becomes distant, and direction feels intuitive rather than measured. Practitioners often describe it as moving through cool velvet or calm smoke. There is no true sight, yet awareness persists, guided by memory and intent. The user reaches for the destination shadow by recalling its location, size, and relationship to surrounding light. The clearer this mental image, the smoother the emergence will be. Reappearing from a shadow requires controlled force. The practitioner pushes outward, allowing light to reclaim their form as they step back into the physical world. This emergence can be gentle or abrupt. A gentle exit produces little disturbance, ideal for stealth, while a forceful exit can scatter loose objects or startle nearby foes. Mastery lies in choosing the appropriate return, balancing speed, sound, and surprise according to need. Shadow step is limited by proximity and shadow quality. The destination must be nearby, usually within line of sight or familiar range, and it must be a true shadow, not merely darkness. Complete absence of light, such as in a sealed cave, offers no contrast and therefore no anchor. Similarly, weak or fragmented shadows may not support passage, risking incomplete emergence. Experienced users learn to assess shadows instinctively, judging which are stable enough to serve as exits. Energy expenditure is another constraint. Each use of shadow step drains mental focus and physical stamina. Repeated steps in quick succession can cause disorientation, muscle fatigue, or shadow sickness, a condition marked by lingering numbness and difficulty distinguishing light from dark. Training emphasizes restraint, teaching practitioners to use shadow step decisively rather than habitually. Recovery often requires exposure to natural light and grounding techniques. In combat, shadow step excels at repositioning. It allows a fighter to evade attacks, close gaps instantly, or strike from unexpected angles. Because the movement is silent and unpredictable, it disrupts enemy timing and morale. However, it is not invulnerability. Attacks that blanket an area with light or energy can limit available shadows, and perceptive opponents may learn to anticipate likely exit points. Tactical awareness is essential to avoid emerging into danger. Outside combat, shadow step has subtle applications. Scouts use it to traverse guarded spaces unseen. Messengers employ it to cross obstacles without opening doors or leaving tracks. Some artisans even adapt the technique for performance, appearing and disappearing as living illusions. In all cases, ethical training stresses respect for privacy and boundaries, as the power to bypass barriers carries significant responsibility. The philosophy behind shadow step teaches balance between presence and absence. Practitioners are taught that darkness is not evil, but a complement to light. By learning to move through shadow, one learns humility, patience, and attentiveness. The technique rewards those who listen more than they act, who wait for the right shadow rather than forcing a transition. This mindset often influences the user's behavior beyond the technique itself. Learning shadow step is a gradual process. Novices begin by meditating within shadows, extending awareness without attempting movement. Later, they practice partial transitions, such as slipping an arm or hand into darkness and withdrawing it intact. Only after mastering these exercises do they attempt full-body steps. Instructors emphasize safety, insisting on controlled environments and trusted guides during early attempts. Cultural interpretations of shadow step vary. In some traditions, it is seen as a sacred gift, taught only to guardians or monks. In others, it is a pragmatic skill, passed down among thieves or spies. Despite these differences, all traditions agree on one truth: shadow step reflects the user's inner state. Those ruled by fear may become lost in shadow, while those with clarity move through it with ease. Ultimately, shadow step is not about escaping reality, but about understanding it more deeply. Light defines form, but shadow reveals space between forms. By stepping into that space, the practitioner gains freedom of movement and perspective. The ability to vanish into darkness and reappear from another shadow nearby becomes more than a trick. it becomes an expression of awareness, discipline, and respect for the unseen paths that exist alongside the visible world. Advanced practitioners develop variations of shadow step that refine its utility. One such variation is the chain step, in which the user moves through multiple shadows in rapid sequence. This technique demands exceptional focus, as each transition compounds the mental load. When executed correctly, chain stepping creates the illusion of omnipresence, with the practitioner appearing in several places within seconds. When executed poorly, it can result in missed exits or delayed emergence, leaving the user vulnerable between steps. Another refinement is the anchored step. Here, the practitioner marks a familiar shadow through repeated use, strengthening their connection to it. Anchored shadows become reliable exits even under stress, allowing faster and more confident reappearance. However, anchors can fade if the environment changes, such as when light sources are moved or destroyed. Practitioners must regularly refresh their anchors to maintain effectiveness. Environmental awareness plays a critical role in shadow step. Natural shadows, like those cast by trees or terrain, tend to be more stable but shift with the sun. Artificial shadows, created by lamps or structures, are more predictable yet vulnerable to disruption. Weather also matters. Rain can blur shadows, fog can soften contrast, and reflective surfaces can fracture darkness into unreliable patterns. Skilled users read these conditions instinctively, adjusting their plans before committing to a step. Opposition to shadow step often involves light manipulation. Sudden illumination can collapse available shadows, forcing the practitioner to remain visible. Continuous light fields, reflective armor, or glowing barriers reduce viable exits. Some adversaries scatter particulate matter like dust or smoke, revealing movement through displaced material even when the step itself remains unseen. Shadow step users train to recognize these counters and retreat rather than persist recklessly. Psychologically, shadow step requires comfort with uncertainty. The brief passage through shadow strips away familiar sensory anchors, confronting the practitioner with controlled disorientation. Those who resist this sensation may panic mid-step, while those who accept it pass through smoothly. Training therefore includes exercises in sensory deprivation and mindfulness, building trust and intent over perception. Symbolically, shadow step represents transition. Many traditions use it as a metaphor for personal change, teaching that one must sometimes enter darkness to emerge elsewhere transformed. Ritualized versions of the technique accompany rites of passage, with initiates stepping between shadows to signify leaving one role and assuming another. This symbolic layer reinforces the discipline and reverence surrounding the art. Practical training drills emphasize precision. One common drill requires stepping between candle shadows without extinguishing the flames, teaching control on emergence. Another involves silent stepping across a guarded hall, focusing on timing and observation rather than speed. Failures are analyzed carefully, not punished, reinforcing the idea that shadow step is a craft refined through reflection. Despite its elegance, shadow step carries risks. Misjudged exits can result in partial emergence, causing injury. Overuse can blur the practitioner's sense of presence, leading to detachment or chronic fatigue. Ethical misuse, such as intrusion or assassination, can erode trust and provoke severe retaliation. Responsible traditions address these dangers openly, pairing technical instruction with moral guidance. In the end, shadow step endures because it harmonizes technique and philosophy. It teaches that movement is not only about distance, but about understanding the spaces in between. By vanishing into darkness and reappearing from another shadow nearby, the practitioner demonstrates mastery over fear, patience over haste, and awareness over brute force. The shadow becomes not a hiding place, but a bridge, and those who walk it do so with intention. As a living discipline, shadow step continues to evolve with each generation of practitioners. New environments, technologies, and philosophies reshape how shadows are perceived and used. Yet the foundation remains unchanged: respect the darkness, understand its limits, and move with purpose. Those who approach the art with arrogance quickly discover that shadows cannot be dominated, only cooperated with. For storytellers and tacticians alike, shadow step offers narrative and strategic depth. It creates tension through uncertainty, rewards preparation, and punishes carelessness. Its rules invite creativity while maintaining boundaries that preserve challenge. Whether imagined as mystical art or advanced technique, it resonates because it mirrors real human experience, the act of navigating unseen transitions in life. To truly explain shadow step is therefore to describe a relationship. It is a dialogue between light and absence, motion and stillness, intent and restraint. When the practitioner vanishes, they are not fleeing, but listening. When they reappear, they do so by choice, grounded and aware. In that balance, shadow step achieves its meaning, a quiet reminder that even in darkness, there are paths, and with discipline, they can be walked safely. Shadow step ultimately rewards mindfulness, preparation, and humility. It cannot replace skill, judgment, or courage, but it amplifies them when used wisely. By honoring both its power and its limits, practitioners ensure the art remains a tool of balance rather than excess, a method of passage rather than escape, and a testament to the quiet strength found where light fades and intention endures. Through practice, patience, and respect, the shadow becomes teacher, pathway, and mirror alike for those who listen carefully. Night howl is not merely a sound but a phenomenon, a weaponized cry that folds fear, command, and ancient instinct into a single exhalation of darkness. It begins low, almost beneath hearing, a vibration that unsettles bone and breath before it ever reaches the ear. When the howl rises, it carries the weight of 1,000 remembered nights, moonlit hunts, forest clearings stained with blood, and the ancestral terror of being seen by something that should not exist. Those who hear it do not simply register noise, they feel themselves being named as prey. Muscles lock, thoughts fragment, and the body betrays the mind by freezing in place, caught between flight and surrender. The chilling scream of night howl paralyzes prey through more than fear alone. Its cadence is tuned to the nervous system, striking a resonance that disrupts balance and voluntary motion. Victims describe the sensation as invisible claws gripping their spine, pinning them upright while their limbs refuse command. Breathing becomes shallow, heart beats thunder painfully, and vision narrows as if the world itself is recoiling. In that moment of paralysis, time stretches. Seconds feel like minutes, long enough for despair to bloom and hope to wither. Even those with strong wills find themselves helpless, reduced to trembling witnesses of their own impending fate. Yet night howl does not act in isolation. As the scream echoes across valleys, ruins, or city streets, it carries a summons encoded within its pitch. Lesser creatures of the dark hear the call as clearly as spoken language. Wolves lift their heads and answer with chorus, their bodies already turning toward the source. Bats pour from caves and eaves like living smoke, wings beating in frantic devotion. Shambling thralls, animated by necromancy or curse, jerk into motion, their empty eyes igniting with borrowed purpose. To them, night howl is a command and a promise. There will be blood, and they will share in it. The howl's summoning power lies in its ability to awaken dormant instincts. Wolves feel the ancient pack bond surge within them, overriding hunger or caution. Bats are drawn by the vibrational signature that mimics the cries of wounded prey on a massive scale. Thralls, lacking true minds, respond to the raw directive embedded in the sound, a pulse of authority that aligns their movements like iron filings to a magnet. Each creature converges not randomly but with eerie coordination, forming a living net around the paralyzed target. Escape becomes impossible not because there is nowhere to run, but because the darkness itself has decided to close in. Night howl is often associated with a singular entity, a predator of mythic stature, whether vampire lord, cursed alpha, or shadow-bound revenant. For such beings, the howl is an extension of identity. It declares dominance over territory and life alike. When unleashed, it marks the speaker as the apex presence in the vicinity, rewriting the hierarchy of fear. Other monsters feel it too, an unspoken warning to submit or withdraw. In this way, night howl reshapes the battlefield before any physical strike is made, ensuring that resistance collapses before claws or fangs ever descend. The psychological impact of night howl lingers long after the sound fades. Survivors, rare though they are, report recurring nightmares in which the howl returns, freezing them once more. Ordinary animal cries can trigger panic, and moonlit nights become unbearable reminders. Some claim they can still feel the vibration in their bones, as if the scream etched itself into their marrow. This lingering trauma serves a purpose beyond cruelty. It spreads the legend of night howl, turning rumor into deterrent. Entire villages abandon roads or forests where the sound has been heard, surrendering territory without a fight. From a narrative perspective, night howl functions as both spectacle and mechanism. It externalizes fear, giving it a voice that characters and audiences alike can recognize instantly. The paralysis it causes creates tension without immediate violence, stretching scenes to the breaking point. The summoned creatures expand the scale of threat, transforming a lone antagonist into a mobile ecosystem of horror. Used sparingly, Night Howl signals escalation, the moment when survival shifts from difficult to nearly impossible. It tells the audience that the rules have changed and mercy is no longer part of the equation. Symbolically, Night Howl represents the return of the primal over the civilized. Its power strips away technology, strategy, and even courage, reducing victims to the same vulnerable state as their ancestors huddled around dying fires. The summoned wolves and bats echo this regression, embodiments of nature's indifference and hunger. Thralls add another layer, suggesting the corruption of humanity itself, bodies robbed of agency and pressed into service by darkness. Together, these elements make Night Howl not just an attack, but a thematic statement about what happens when order collapses. Mechanically, if interpreted as an ability within a game or mythos, Night Howl balances control and escalation. The paralysis effect is temporary but decisive, creating openings rather than instant death. The summoned creatures are lesser, individually manageable, yet overwhelming in numbers and coordination. This design ensures that Night Howl feels powerful without being absolute. Clever opponents may resist, interrupt, or escape if they act before the howl completes or if they shield themselves from sound. Such limitations preserve tension and prevent the ability from becoming monotonous or unfair. There is also an element of ritual to Night Howl. The user often must prepare, drawing breath, raising their head, or aligning with moon and shadow. This brief moment of anticipation heightens dread. Observers who recognize the signs know what is coming and feel the crushing weight of inevitability. The howl itself then becomes cathartic, a release of stored menace. In storytelling, this ritualization allows pacing control, giving space for last words, desperate plans, or tragic acceptance before the scream shatters resolve. Ultimately, Night Howl endures as a chilling concept because it unites sound, fear, and command into a single act. It reminds us that some threats do not need speed or subtlety. They announce themselves, confident that resistance is futile. The paralysis of prey, the rush of answering darkness, and the lingering echo in the mind all reinforce a simple truth. In the presence of true predators, survival is not about strength, but about whether the night itself has chosen you to live. In mythic ecology, Night Howl functions as a keystone force. Just as certain species shape entire environments, this scream reshapes the behavior of everything that hears it. Animals flee or submit, spirits stir, and even inanimate spaces seem to listen. Walls carry the echo longer than they should, fog thickens, and shadows stretch as if leaning toward the sound. This environmental response reinforces the idea that Night Howl is not bound by biology alone but by a deeper pact between darkness and fear. The world cooperates, becoming an accomplice rather than a neutral stage. Culturally, societies that exist under the threat of Night Howl adapt in telling ways. Bells are tuned to counter frequencies, though none have proven reliable. Children are taught songs meant to drown out dangerous sounds, while elders insist on silence at night, believing noise attracts attention. Superstitions flourish, iron charms, ash circles, and whispered prayers to forgotten gods. None offer true protection, but they provide the illusion of agency. This desperation highlights the howl's greatest cruelty. It steals not only movement, but certainty, leaving people grasping at rituals in a universe that no longer listens. The entity capable of Night Howl often pays a price for wielding it. Channeling such a scream strains the body and soul, drawing deeply on predatory essence or cursed power. Afterward, the user may experience a hollowing exhaustion, a momentary loss of self as the beast within recedes. This cost prevents constant use and adds tragic depth. The howl is effective precisely because it is rare. Each use feels momentous, a decision that cannot be undone, reinforcing its narrative weight. From a sensory standpoint, Night Howl is described inconsistently, which only adds to its mystique. Some hear it as lupine, others as something almost human, stretched and broken. A few insist it contains layered voices, as if multiple throats cry out in perfect unison. This ambiguity allows the howl to adapt to different settings and themes. In a Gothic tale it may sound mournful and aristocratic. In a feral wilderness it becomes raw and animalistic. The constant is not the sound itself, but the reaction it provokes. Night Howl also serves as a mirror to its victims. Those already burdened by guilt or fear suffer more intensely, their paralysis deepened by internal echoes. Braver souls may resist a heartbeat longer, feeling the scream batter against their resolve before cracking it. This variability allows storytellers to reveal character under pressure. Who freezes instantly, and who fights the terror for one more step. The howl does not judge, but it exposes. In strategic terms, Night Howl excels at area denial and psychological warfare. Even when it fails to secure a kill, it scatters forces, breaks formations, and erodes morale. Enemies who know it can be used hesitate, second-guessing every shadow. This anticipatory fear extends the howl's influence far beyond its audible range. A predator need only be rumored nearby for Night Howl to begin working, tightening its grip through imagination alone. The summoned creatures are not mindless reinforcements but extensions of the howl's intent. They arrive already agitated, senses sharpened, movements synchronized. Wolves flank instinctively, bats harry from above, and thralls advance relentlessly, absorbing blows meant for their master. This layered assault overwhelms prey on multiple fronts, forcing impossible choices. Defend against claws, wings, or grasping hands. By the time the victim decides, paralysis has usually sealed the outcome. Ethically, Night Howl raises questions about domination and consent. It strips agency completely, reducing living beings to objects acted upon. In darker narratives, this aligns the user firmly as a villain, an embodiment of tyranny. In more ambiguous tales, the howl may be wielded against worse horrors, forcing readers to confront uncomfortable trade-offs. Is absolute control ever justified if it prevents greater destruction? Night Howl does not answer, it only amplifies the question. As an auditory motif, Night Howl can recur in altered forms. A distant echo, a half-remembered dream, or a distorted imitation can foreshadow its return. Each variation rekindles fear without repeating the full event. This technique maintains freshness while honoring the original impact. When the true howl finally sounds again, its power feels renewed, not diminished. In the end, Night Howl endures because it taps into something universal. Long before language, before weapons or walls, sound was the first warning of danger. A cry meant predator, meant death. Night Howl weaponizes that ancient signal, shaping it into an inescapable command. It does not need explanation to terrify. For all time. Feral regeneration is a brutal, instinct-driven form of healing that reflects the predatory nature of the creature that possesses it. Unlike refined magical restoration or technologically assisted medical repair, this ability is rooted in hunger, dominance, and biological necessity. When described as wounds knit themselves together as long as it has recently fed, the phrase conveys far more than rapid healing. It implies a regenerative system that is conditional, visceral, and dependent on the consumption of life-sustaining matter, usually flesh or vital energy. This mechanic blends physiology, behavior, and narrative symbolism into a single, feral process. At its core, feral regeneration functions as a metabolic overdrive triggered by feeding. After consuming prey, the creature's body enters a heightened anabolic state. Nutrients are not merely digested for energy but are immediately redirected towards cellular repair. Proteins become raw building blocks for muscle and skin. Iron replenishes blood loss. Lipids fuel accelerated cell division. This process resembles extreme natural regeneration seen in certain animals, such as salamanders or sharks, but amplified to a monstrous degree. The body prioritizes survival above all else, diverting every available resource to closing wounds, sealing fractures, and restoring function. The phrase "knit themselves together" is especially important. It suggests that the healing is not instantaneous or clean, but organic and physical. Flesh pulls tight, muscle fibers reconnect, and bone realigns with audible cracks and wet sounds. Scars may remain, twisted and uneven, reflecting the rough nature of the repair. This is not a gentle glow of magic but a violent assertion of life refusing to end. Observers might witness skin crawling as it reattaches, blood reversing its flow back into veins, and torn tissue fusing under sheer biological force. However, this regeneration is not constant. It is explicitly conditional on recent feeding. This limitation serves several purposes. Biologically, it enforces conservation of energy. Regeneration on this scale is expensive, requiring massive caloric and nutritional input. Without fresh sustenance, the body cannot maintain such output and will revert to normal, or even weakened, healing rates. Narratively, this condition reinforces the creature's predatory cycle. To survive injury, it must hunt. To heal, it must consume. Violence begets violence in an unending loop. The definition of recently fed can vary depending on the creature and setting. In some interpretations, it may mean within minutes or hours, while in others it could extend to a day. The closer the feeding is to the moment of injury, the stronger and faster the regeneration. If the creature feeds during combat, wounds may close almost as quickly as they are inflicted, creating a terrifying feedback loop where harming the creature only encourages it to kill more to sustain itself. If too much time passes, the regenerative effect weakens, wounds reopening or healing imperfectly. Feral regeneration also implies a lack of conscious control. The creature does not choose to heal, its body simply does so when conditions are met. This can lead to unintended consequences. For example, foreign objects embedded in wounds, such as arrows or blades, may be pushed out violently as tissue closes, causing additional damage before healing completes. Poorly aligned bones may heal crooked if not set properly, resulting in lasting deformities. The regeneration is efficient but not precise, valuing speed over perfection. From a thematic perspective, this ability emphasizes savagery over civility. Feeding is not just sustenance but a trigger for power. It blurs the line between eating and killing, making consumption an act of dominance and survival rather than nourishment. This reinforces the idea that the creature is ruled by instinct. Its body rewards successful predation with resilience, encouraging aggressive behavior and discouraging retreat or restraint. In storytelling and game design, feral regeneration creates natural tension and balance. The ability is powerful, but its dependence on feeding introduces vulnerability. Starvation becomes a real threat. Enemies who can deny the creature access to prey, isolate it, or exhaust its food sources can overcome its regenerative advantage. This transforms hunger into a tactical and narrative weakness. A wounded but well-fed creature is nearly unstoppable, while a starving one may be fragile and desperate. The sensory experience of this regeneration is also worth emphasizing. Pain does not necessarily disappear. Instead, it may be intensified briefly as nerves reconnect and tissue reforms. The creature may roar, convulse, or enter a frenzied state during healing. This reinforces the feral aspect, showing that regeneration is not comfort but survival at any cost. The process may even release heat, steam, or the stench of blood and iron, marking the creature as something unnatural and dangerous. Psychologically, reliance on feral regeneration can shape behavior and mentality. A creature that knows it can heal by feeding may develop reckless combat habits, willingly trading injury for the opportunity to kill and consume. Over time, this erodes fear and caution, replacing them with hunger-driven confidence. Conversely, when food is scarce, the same creature may become paranoid, aggressive, or territorial, driven by the knowledge that injury without feeding could mean death. Symbolically, feral regeneration represents a worldview where life is sustained by taking life. Healing is not granted freely or through discipline, but stolen from others. This makes the ability morally charged. It can be seen as a curse as much as a gift, binding survival to predation. Characters with this trait may struggle with their dependence on feeding, especially if they possess intelligence or conscience. Every healed wound becomes a reminder of what was consumed to close it. In practical terms, feral regeneration often favors close combat. The need to feed encourages physical proximity, grappling, biting, or tearing, rather than distant or indirect methods of fighting. This further reinforces the savage identity of the creature. Even if it possesses weapons or other abilities, its regeneration subtly nudges it toward visceral, up-close violence, where feeding is easiest and most immediate. The limitation of recently fed also allows for partial regeneration. Minor wounds may close with minimal nourishment, while severe injuries require significant feeding. A shallow cut might seal after a single kill, while regrowing a limb or repairing shattered organs could demand multiple victims. This scaling cost adds depth and realism, preventing the regeneration from feeling limitless or trivial. This regenerative process can also be examined through an evolutionary lens. A creature that develops feral regeneration would likely arise in an environment of constant conflict, where injuries are frequent and survival depends on rapid recovery. Over generations, Those individuals capable of converting food directly into repair would outlast those that relied on slower healing. Hunger and injury would become biologically linked signals, with feeding hormones triggering cascades of growth factors, stem cell activation, and accelerated mitosis. In such a species, digestion and regeneration would be inseparable systems rather than separate bodily functions. The timing of regeneration following feeding may occur in waves rather than a single surge. Immediately after consuming prey, the most critical injuries are addressed first. Bleeding stops, organs stabilize, and mobility is restored. Secondary repairs follow, smoothing tissue, reinforcing bone density, and restoring stamina. This staggered healing prevents the body from collapsing under the strain of total regeneration at once. It also creates moments of vulnerability, where the creature appears healed enough to fight but still carries hidden weaknesses beneath the surface. Another important aspect of feral regeneration is how it interacts with different types of damage. Physical wounds respond best, as the process is optimized for repairing flesh, bone, and blood. Poison, disease, or energy-based injuries may persist longer or require repeated feeding to overcome. Some toxins might even interfere with regeneration by disrupting metabolism or cell division, forcing the creature to consume more to compensate. This adds further complexity, showing that even feral healing has limits and counters. Environmental factors can also influence the effectiveness of regeneration. Cold may slow cellular activity, reducing the speed at which wounds close. Extreme heat might accelerate healing but at the cost of increased exhaustion. A nutrient-poor diet could result in weaker repairs, brittle bones, or scarred tissue. Feeding on particularly strong or magical prey might temporarily enhance regeneration, allowing for unusually complete or rapid healing. Thus, not all meals are equal, and the quality of what is consumed matters as much as the act of feeding itself. Social consequences arise when such a creature exists among others. Allies may view its healing with fear or disgust, knowing that every recovery requires a kill. Enemies may attempt to manipulate this dependence, offering poisoned prey or luring the creature into feeding traps. Even within a group of similar beings, competition for food could become brutal, as individuals recognize that denying another's meal is equivalent to inflicting lasting injury. Regeneration, meant to preserve life, paradoxically intensifies conflict. There is also a spiritual or mythic interpretation of feral regeneration. In legends, creatures with this ability are often portrayed as cursed by gods, demons, or primal forces. Their wounds close because they are not meant to die easily, condemned to endless cycles of violence. Feeding becomes ritualistic, an offering exchanged for continued existence. In this context, regeneration is not just biological but metaphysical, sustained by stolen vitality or life essence rather than mere calories. From a narrative standpoint, moments where regeneration fails are particularly powerful. When the creature is wounded and cannot feed, the audience sees it stripped of its greatest advantage. Fear replaces confidence, and desperation drives risky decisions. These moments highlight the cost of dependence and remind us that even the most fearsome predator can be reduced to vulnerability when its cycle is broken. That's a wrap on our chilling journey into the world of Nightfang, the vampire monster that hunts the living. We've uncovered its origins, explored its terrifying abilities, and peeked into the dark corners where it strikes. Whether legend or reality, one thing is clear: Nightfang is a predator that refuses to be forgotten. If you survived this deep dive into darkness, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss another monster revelation. Share your thoughts. Have you encountered anything supernatural? Until next time, stay vigilant. The night is full of hunters.